The worn tires of the bicycle protested with a low groan as it bumped over the uneven paving stones outside the imposing gates of Easton Academy. Lu Jiaxi steadied herself, her fingers tightening around the worn straps of her backpack. The scent of exhaust fumes mingled with the delicate fragrance of jasmine from the meticulously manicured gardens within, a stark contrast mirroring her own juxtaposed existence. Her mother, face flushed from the exertion of cycling, beamed at her. "Jiaxi, study hard. This is your chance." Jiaxi nodded, a tight knot forming in her throat. Her mother's simple words carried the weight of years of sacrifice, of early mornings spent hawking street food, of late nights hunched over sewing machines. This is my chance. A chance to repay her. A chance to escape the suffocating weight of poverty. The thought was a bitter pill, coated with the sweet hope of a future beyond their cramped apartment and the relentless cycle of survival. A future she knew her mother envisioned with every drop of sweat and every weary sigh. A gleaming black limousine purred to a halt just a few feet away, its polished surface reflecting the ornate wrought iron of the gates like a dark mirror. The chauffeur, impeccably dressed, hurried to open the rear door. Lin Jia emerged, a vision of effortless elegance in her crisp uniform. Her hair, styled in a sleek ponytail, cascaded down her back like a silken waterfall. A faint, expensive perfume lingered in the air, momentarily overpowering the scent of jasmine. She barely glanced at the bicycle and its occupants, her eyes fixed on the grand entrance of the academy. Just another day, she thought, adjusting the diamond stud in her ear. Another day at the top. She could feel the envious stares of the other students already gathered near the gates, a familiar and intoxicating sensation. The subtle shift in their whispers, the quick glances exchanged, it all fed her inherent need for validation, for the reassurance of her superior position. Lu Jiaxi's mother, ever practical, fussed over her daughter's uniform, smoothing non-existent wrinkles with calloused hands. "Remember what I told you," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "Be respectful, be diligent. Don't let anyone look down on you." Jiaxi forced a smile, her heart aching at the unspoken understanding between them. "Don't let them see the fear, Ma. Don't let them see the cracks in my carefully constructed facade." The limousine's engine hummed impatiently, a subtle reminder of the gulf that separated them. Lin Jia, having acknowledged the greetings of a few strategically chosen classmates, turned her attention to Lu Jiaxi and her mother, a condescending smile playing on her lips. "We have 2 villas near the school," she said, her voice dripping with feigned concern. "Which building do you live in?" Jiaxi froze, her mind racing. 2 villas. Near the school. This casual display of wealth, so effortlessly delivered, is a calculated move. The knot in her throat tightened. She met Lin Jia's gaze, her own expression carefully neutral. "I'm staying at the school dormitory," she replied quietly, trying to ignore the burning sensation of humiliation creeping up her neck. Her mother's hand tightened on her shoulder, a silent message of support. Lin Jia's smile widened, a hint of triumph flickering in her eyes. "Oh, really?" she said, her voice laced with a subtle undercurrent of disbelief. "Well, if you need anything, just let me know." Although, she added, her gaze sweeping over Jiaxi's simple attire, "no need. I've got all the essentials ready. Just stay at school." The dismissal hung in the air, thick and suffocating. Chen Feng, one of Lin Jia's entourage, stifled a giggle. The others exchanged knowing glances, their expressions a mixture of amusement and disdain. Su Yancheng, leaning against a nearby pillar, observed the scene with detached amusement. He found the blatant display of social hierarchy both predictable and slightly irritating. How predictable! The rich girl asserting her dominance, the poor girl trying to maintain her dignity. A classic Easton Academy drama. He stifled a yawn, wondering how long it would take for this particular drama to unfold. Zhang Yan, standing slightly apart from the crowd, watched the interaction with an unreadable expression. His eyes flickered between Lin Jia and Lu Jiaxi, a subtle frown creasing his brow. Something doesn't add up, he thought, a nagging feeling of unease settling in his gut. That girl, there's something more to her than meets the eye. He pushed his glasses up his nose, his gaze lingering on Lu Jiaxi's retreating figure. Later that week, at the school's annual archery competition, the tension between Lin Jia and Lu Jiaxi reached its peak. Lin Jia, a skilled archer, effortlessly hit the bullseye, her performance punctuated by the enthusiastic applause of her admirers. Huang Tian, a wealthy and influential student, watched her with undisguised admiration. His presence further fueled Lin Jia's sense of superiority, casting a shadow over Jiaxi's quiet confidence. Jiaxi, despite her initial hesitation, stepped up to the line, her hand surprisingly steady. She drew the bowstring back, her movements fluid and precise, a stark contrast to her seemingly fragile appearance. The arrow flew, finding its mark just a hair's breadth away from the center. A ripple of surprise went through the crowd. Lin Jia's smile faltered. As the competition progressed, a sudden commotion erupted near the entrance. A sleek, black car, even more luxurious than Lin Jia's, pulled up to the gates. A woman stepped out, her bearing regal and commanding. It was Lu Jiaxi's mother, but transformed. Gone were the simple clothes and the weary expression. She was dressed in an elegant business suit, her face radiating power and confidence. Whispers spread through the crowd like wildfire. That's Lu Jiaxi's mother, she's the CEO of Jiaxing Real Estate, the one who just bought that massive development downtown. The whispers turned into gasps of disbelief. Lin Jia's carefully constructed world began to crumble. Huang Tian's gaze shifted from Lin Jia to Jiaxi, a flicker of interest sparking in his eyes. Jiaxi met her mother's gaze, a silent understanding passing between them. The years of sacrifice, the carefully guarded secret, it all culminated in this moment of revelation. It's time, Ma, she thought, a sense of quiet triumph flooding her veins. Time to show them who I really am. Lin Jia stared at Jiaxi, her face pale and contorted with a mixture of shock, envy, and a profound sense of defeat. The carefully constructed facade of innocence and effortless superiority shattered, revealing the raw insecurity that lay beneath. The crowd, ever fickle, shifted their attention to Jiaxi, their whispers now laced with awe and respect. The social hierarchy of Easton Academy, so meticulously maintained, had been irrevocably disrupted. And Zhang Yan, observing from a distance, allowed himself a small, almost imperceptible smile. He knew, with a certainty that surprised even himself, that this was just the beginning. The late summer sun, a molten coin in the vast expanse of the sky, cast long shadows across the manicured lawns of Easton Academy. Lin Jia, perched on the edge of a marble fountain, idly swirled the ice in her iced latte. Her perfectly manicured fingers, tipped with a delicate shade of rose quartz, tapped against the condensation-beaded glass. A faint, almost imperceptible smile played on her lips. It was a smile that did not reach her eyes, a smile that spoke of amusement tinged with something colder, something akin to disdain. Let the games begin, she thought, her gaze sweeping over the throng of students milling around the registration area. This year promised to be particularly entertaining. Did you see her? Chen Feng, her voice dripping with a cloying sweetness that Lin Jia knew masked a viper's venom, leaned in conspiratorially. Lin Jia merely raised a perfectly sculpted eyebrow, a silent invitation for Chen Feng to continue. She knew exactly who her was. The whispers had already begun to circulate. The scholarship student. The charity case. The girl who dared to trespass on their hallowed ground. Riding a bicycle, Chen Feng continued, her voice laced with incredulity, as though the very concept of a bicycle on Easton Academy grounds was an affront to good taste. A rusty, broken-down bicycle. Can you imagine? A ripple of laughter spread through Lin Jia's entourage. Zhang Yan, usually quiet and studious, shifted uneasily. "They're so cruel," she thought, her stomach twisting with a knot of discomfort. "Why do they have to be like this?" But the words remained trapped in her throat, choked by a fear of becoming the next target of their ridicule. Lin Jia's gaze, sharp as shattered glass, finally settled on the approaching figure. A girl, small and unassuming, was indeed maneuvering a bicycle through the crowd. Its paint was chipped, the handlebars slightly askew, but it was clean, meticulously cared for. The girl herself wore a simple, faded dress, her hair pulled back in a neat ponytail. There was a quiet dignity in her bearing, a subtle defiance in the way she held her head high despite the stares that followed her every move. A hillbilly, another girl, whose name Lin Jia couldn't be bothered to remember, sneered. The word hung in the air, heavy with contempt. Lin Jia allowed a small, almost imperceptible sigh to escape her lips. So predictable, she thought. They always resort to the same tired clichés. But even as she acknowledged the banality of their cruelty, a flicker of something darker, something possessive, ignited within her. This girl, this insignificant speck of dust in her meticulously curated world, was a disruption. An anomaly. "And I heard," Chen Feng continued, lowering her voice to a stage whisper, "that she's aiming for Su Yancheng. A gold digger, clearly." Su Yancheng, leaning against a nearby tree, seemingly oblivious to the drama unfolding around him, idly flipped a coin. He caught it deftly, a flicker of amusement in his eyes. Interesting, he thought. A pauper challenging a queen. He wondered how this little game would play out. The girl with the bicycle finally reached the registration table. As she dismounted, her gaze swept across the group gathered around the fountain. It lingered for a fraction of a second on Lin Jia, a look that seemed to see right through her carefully constructed facade. Lin Jia felt a prickle of unease, a sudden, irrational surge of anger. How dare she look at me like that, she thought, her fingers tightening around her glass. "Lu Jiaxi," the girl said to the registrar, her voice clear and steady. There was no trace of embarrassment or shame in her tone. Lin Jia's internal monologue raged. Lu Jiaxi. Such a common name. So pedestrian. She watched as Jiaxi completed the registration process, her movements precise and efficient. There was a quiet strength about her, a resilience that irritated Lin Jia more than she cared to admit. As Jiaxi turned to leave, pushing her bicycle beside her, she passed within earshot of Lin Jia's group. "Poor guy coming to school on a broken bike," one of the girls muttered loud enough for Jiaxi to hear. Jiaxi paused, her hand tightening on the handlebar. For a moment, Lin Jia thought she saw a flicker of something in Jiaxi's eyes, something that resembled pity. But then Jiaxi continued walking, her back straight, her head held high. She disappeared into the crowd, leaving behind a silence that felt heavier, more oppressive than the earlier laughter. Later that evening, at her family's sprawling villa, Lin Jia paced restlessly across the polished marble floor. The encounter with Lu Jiaxi had left her unsettled, a nagging feeling of unease clinging to her like a second skin. She couldn't understand why this girl, this nobody, had managed to ruffle her composure. "Mother," Lin Jia said, her voice laced with a petulance she rarely displayed in front of her parents. "Did you know they accepted a scholarship student this year? A girl from, well, let's just say she's not exactly from our circle." Her mother, a woman of impeccable elegance and icy composure, barely looked up from her magazine. "And why should that bother you, Jia?" she asked, her voice smooth as silk. "It's just embarrassing," Lin Jia replied, unable to articulate the true source of her discomfort. "She's so different." A subtle smile played on her mother's lips. "Different can be intriguing," she said, her gaze finally meeting Lin Jia's. "Or it can be easily eliminated." There was a glint of steel in her eyes, a silent promise of power and control. Lin Jia's unease slowly dissolved, replaced by a familiar sense of confidence. She knew, with absolute certainty, that her mother would handle the situation. Lu Jiaxi, the girl with the broken bicycle, was no match for the combined force of their wealth and influence. The game, after all, had only just begun. The opulent chandeliers of Easton Academy's classroom cast a deceptive glow, reflecting off the polished surfaces and pristine uniforms, a world where privilege whispered in every corner. The air, thick with the scent of expensive perfume and the faint aroma of old books, held a deceptive stillness, the calm before a storm brewing in the hearts of its inhabitants. Mrs. Gao, her spectacles perched precariously on her nose, beamed at the class. "Settle down, children. We have 2 new students joining us today." A ripple of anticipation, masked by practiced indifference, spread through the room. Lin Jia, her designer handbag resting carelessly on the mahogany desk, adjusted the diamond stud in her ear, a calculated gesture of nonchalant wealth. 2 new lambs to the slaughter, she thought, her lips curving into a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. The first girl, introduced as Lin Jia, glided into the room, radiating an aura of effortless elegance. Her posture, the subtle sway of her hips, the way she tilted her head as if addressing loyal subjects, it all spoke volumes of her upbringing, of a life spent amidst silk and servants. Su Yenchen, leaning back in his chair, watched with a detached curiosity. He found the predictable social dynamics of Easton Academy mildly amusing, a game played with practiced ease. "Another peacock," he mused, tracing the outline of a dragon etched into his desk with a languid finger. "Welcome, Lin Jia. We're delighted to have you," Mrs. Gao chirped, her voice laced with the deference reserved for the offspring of influential families. Lin Jia responded with a perfectly measured smile, acknowledging the teacher and then sweeping her gaze across the room, a silent assertion of her position. The second girl, Lu Jiaxi, stood in stark contrast. Her simple cotton dress, the worn edges of her school bag, the slight hesitation in her movements, they painted a picture of humble beginnings, of a world far removed from Easton Academy's gilded cage. Chen Feng, ever the sycophant, leaned closer to Lin Jia, his voice a stage whisper. "Look at her, Jia Jia. A filthy village girl. What's she even doing here?" Lin Jia's smile widened, a predatory gleam in her eyes. A perfect target, she thought, the thrill of the hunt coursing through her veins. She had built her empire on Easton's social ladder by subtly dismantling anyone who dared to challenge her reign. This new girl, with her threadbare clothes and timid demeanor, posed no real threat, but offered an excellent opportunity to solidify her position, to remind everyone of the vast chasm separating them. "Welcome Lu Jiaxi," Mrs. Gao's voice faltered slightly, the unspoken question hanging in the air. "How did someone like her end up here?" Lu Jiaxi met Mrs. Gao's gaze, her expression unreadable. A flicker of defiance, quickly masked, crossed her features. Inside, her heart pounded against her ribs, a frantic drumbeat against the silence of the room. "Don't cower, Jiaxi. You earned your place here," she told herself, her mother's sacrifices, the endless hours of studying under the flickering lamplight, fueling her resolve. Zhang Yan, seated near the back, observed the scene unfold, his eyes narrowing slightly. He recognized the subtle cruelty in Lin Jia's smile, the predatory glint that spoke of a hunger for dominance. He shifted in his seat, a quiet unease settling over him. He couldn't explain it, but something about Lu Jiaxi's quiet resilience drew his attention, a silent challenge against the suffocating atmosphere of privilege. "We have a charity drive coming up," Mrs. Gao announced, her voice regaining its cheerful tone. "It's a wonderful opportunity for us to give back to the community." Lin Jia's eyes lit up. This was her domain, her chance to shine. The charity drive was a well-established ritual at Easton, a thinly veiled display of wealth and influence. "I'm planning a grand gala," she announced, her voice dripping with honeyed sweetness. We can all contribute our family heirlooms for auction. She glanced at Jiashi, her smile laced with malice. Let's see what treasures our little village girl has to offer. Jiashi felt the weight of their gazes, the unspoken mockery hanging heavy in the air. A wave of anger washed over her, quickly followed by a chilling calm. They think they know me, she thought, her fingers tightening around the strap of her worn bag. They think they see a beggar at their doorstep. They have no idea. Later that day, as Jiashi walked out of the school gates, she saw her mother waiting by the street stall, her face etched with worry. Jiashi. How was your first day? Her mother's voice, roughened by years of hardship, held a warmth that pierced through Jiashi's carefully constructed armor. It was interesting, Jiashi replied, a flicker of amusement in her eyes. She thought about the upcoming charity drive, about Lin Jia's smug confidence, about the silent judgment of her classmates. Let them have their little games, she thought, a steel glint entering her gaze. They have no idea who they're dealing with. They have no idea that the village girl they so readily dismiss is the daughter of Lu Jian, the real estate tycoon whose empire overshadows even their family's fortunes. As a sleek limousine pulled up to the curb, its tinted windows reflecting the setting sun, Jiashi turned to her mother, a ghost of a smile playing on her lips. Mother, I think it's time we showed them what true wealth looks like. The driver, impeccably dressed, stepped out and opened the door, revealing the plush leather interior. As Jiashi slid into the back seat, she caught the shocked expression on Lin Jia's face, who was just exiting the school gates with Huang Tian. Huang Tian, known for his discerning eye and sharp business acumen, paused, his gaze lingering on the departing limousine, a flicker of intrigue in his eyes. Interesting, he thought, his mind already calculating the potential power shifts within Easton's intricate social web. The game, it seemed, was just beginning. The crisp autumn air, scented with the faint sweetness of osmanthus blossoms, did little to dispel the cloying atmosphere of forced generosity that hung over Easton Academy's courtyard. Sunlight, fractured by the stained glass windows of the chapel, cast kaleidoscopic patterns across the polished marble floor, reflecting off the expectant faces of the assembled students. Lin Jia, bathed in a particularly vibrant patch of crimson and gold, allowed a practiced smile to grace her lips. It was a smile that reached her eyes, crinkling the corners just so, a smile that spoke of effortless charm and genuine benevolence. Inwardly, however, a different emotion stirred. A cold, calculating satisfaction. This was her stage, her moment. The annual charity auction, a thinly veiled opportunity for Easton's elite to flaunt their wealth under the guise of altruism. And this year, Lin Jia intended to outshine them all. She held up a delicate, bejeweled hand, silencing the murmuring crowd. The gesture, seemingly demure, held an undercurrent of command. I believe, she began, her voice as clear and melodious as a finely tuned instrument, that giving back is not just a duty, but a privilege. Her eyes, the color of dark honey, swept over the assembled students, lingering for a fraction of a second on Lu Jiashi, who stood near the back, her simple cotton dress a stark contrast to the silks and cashmere that surrounded her. Lin Jia's smile widened, ever so slightly. Therefore, she continued, her voice taking on a theatrical lilt, I'll donate 50,000 as an example. The gasp that rippled through the crowd was precisely the reaction she'd anticipated. 50,000. Enough to buy a small car. A sum that would ensure her position at the top of the donation list, a sum that would solidify her status as Easton Academy's reigning queen bee. How much can those two broke guys give? Chen Feng, Lin Jia's ever-loyal shadow, snickered, his words carrying just loud enough to reach Jiashi and Zhang Yan, who stood beside her. Lin Jia's gaze flickered back to Jiashi. The girl remained impassive, her expression unreadable. An irritatingly calm facade. Lin Jia hated that composure, that quiet dignity that seemed to defy her attempts to unsettle her. Does she think she's better than us? The thought, sharp and venomous, coiled in Lin Jia's stomach. Su Yancheng, leaning against a nearby pillar, watched the scene unfold with a detached amusement. He found Lin Jia's performance interesting. A carefully orchestrated display of power and manipulation, masked by a veneer of sweet innocence. He wondered if the girl, Jiaxi, saw through it. Her stillness, her silence, intrigued him. It was a stark contrast to the frantic fluttering of the other students, eager to impress, to conform, to belong. Jiaxi felt the weight of their stares, the whispers that slithered through the crowd like venomous snakes. Broke girl. Charity case. Doesn't belong here. Each word was a tiny pinprick, a subtle erosion of her carefully constructed composure. She clenched her hands, her nails digging into her palms, a physical anchor against the rising tide of humiliation. She knew what they saw, a poor girl, out of place in this world of privilege and excess. They didn't see the sacrifices, the long hours her mother spent hawking street food, the scrimping and saving, every penny earned a testament to the fierce, unwavering love that had propelled Jiaxi to this prestigious academy. They didn't see the fire that burned within her, the determination to prove them wrong. Zhang Yan, sensing her distress, shifted slightly, placing himself between Jiaxi and the prying eyes of their classmates. A small gesture, but one that offered a sliver of comfort. He didn't speak, didn't offer empty platitudes. He simply stood there, a silent bulwark against the storm. Across the courtyard, Lin Jia's mother, her face etched with worry lines, watched her daughter with a mixture of pride and concern. She'd worked tirelessly to provide Lin Jia with this life, this world of luxury and opportunity. But lately, she'd noticed a hardness in her daughter's eyes, a ruthlessness that made her uneasy. Huang Tian, his eyes fixed on Lin Jia, felt a surge of admiration. Her audacity, her confidence, captivated him. He liked a woman who knew what she wanted and wasn't afraid to take it. He imagined her at his side, a glittering trophy wife, a symbol of his own success and power. The headmaster, oblivious to the simmering tensions beneath the surface, droned on about the importance of philanthropy. His words, hollow and meaningless, washed over Jiaxi, lost in the cacophony of her own thoughts. They think they know me. A flicker of a smile touched her lips, cold and sharp. They think they have me figured out. Later that evening, as Lin Jia basked in the afterglow of her triumphant performance, a sleek black car pulled up to the gates of her family's sprawling villa. Inside, Jiaxi's mother, her hands rough and calloused, clutched a small, worn photograph. It was a picture of Jiaxi as a child, her eyes bright with intelligence and hope. "Soon, my daughter," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "Soon, they will all know who you really are." The car glided through the gates, disappearing into the opulent embrace of the Lin family estate, a silent predator entering the lion's den. The opulent hallway of Easton Academy hummed with the low murmur of privileged voices. Sunlight, fractured by the stained glass windows, painted kaleidoscopic patterns on the polished marble floor. Lin Jia, a vision in pastel pink, stood surrounded by her entourage, her laughter echoing a little too shrilly, a little too brightly. She held a delicate, pearl-inlaid compact, turning it over and over in her manicured hands. Inwardly, a bitter satisfaction coiled in her stomach. This was it. The perfect opportunity. Lu Jiaxi, that impostor, wouldn't know what hit her. Jiaxi stood a few feet away, her back against the cool stone wall, her posture stiff. Her simple, almost threadbare uniform seemed to shrink under the weight of the gazes directed at her. She clutched a worn textbook to her chest like a shield. She could feel the subtle shift in the atmosphere, the predatory glint in Lin Jia's eyes, and the knowing smirks of her classmates. A cold dread settled in her stomach, a familiar ache of being the outsider, the prey. Jiashi, Lin Jia's voice dripped with saccharine sweetness, a stark contrast to the venom in her eyes. I seem to have misplaced something. A new compact. Have you seen it? Each word was meticulously enunciated, laced with an undercurrent of accusation. Internally, Lin Jia savored the moment. This charade of innocence was almost as satisfying as the downfall she was orchestrating. Let her deny it. Let her squirm. Jiashi met Lin Jia's gaze, her own expression unreadable. No, she replied quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. The word echoed strangely in the sudden hush of the hallway. Her heart hammered against her ribs, a frantic bird trapped in a cage. She knew, with a chilling certainty, that this was a trap. The way Lin Jia's eyes glittered, the way Chen Feng and the others shifted, closing ranks like wolves encircling their prey, it all pointed to a carefully orchestrated scene. She forced herself to maintain eye contact, refusing to give them the satisfaction of seeing her fear. Lin Jia took a step closer, her smile widening, revealing a hint of something sharp, almost cruel. Are you sure? She purred, her voice laced with mock concern. It was a gift, you see. Quite unique. She paused, letting the implication hang in the air. Inside, she reveled in the subtle shift of power, the way Jiashi's shoulders tensed, the way her eyes flickered with apprehension. I haven't seen it, Jiashi repeated, her voice steadier this time. She knew denying it was futile, but she wouldn't give them the satisfaction of a confession. She'd learned early on that in this world, showing weakness was akin to inviting attack. Her mind raced, trying to decipher the situation, to find a way out. There had to be a way out. Lin Jia let out a small, theatrical sigh. How unfortunate, she murmured, her gaze dropping to Jiashi's worn school bag. Perhaps you could check your bag. Just in case. The words were a thinly veiled command. Jiashi hesitated, her hand tightening on the strap of her bag. She could feel the weight of their gazes, the silent pressure. The hallway seemed to shrink, the air growing thick with anticipation. She knew that refusing would only confirm their suspicions, however unfounded. But the thought of opening her bag, of exposing its meager contents to their judging eyes, filled her with a deep, visceral shame. These cosmetics, Lin Jia continued, her voice taking on a sharper edge, are custom-made. Very expensive. And, she paused for dramatic effect, her eyes gleaming, under each product, there's a small engraving. An abbreviation. For down payment of 1,000. She leaned in, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper, take it out and see if it's yours. The accusation hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. The small crowd gasped, their whispers rippling through the hallway. Su Yancheng, leaning against a locker, watched the scene unfold with detached amusement, a flicker of something akin to curiosity in his eyes. Zhang Yan, standing slightly apart from the group, observed Jiashi with a thoughtful expression, a subtle furrow in his brow. Jiashi felt a wave of nausea wash over her. A down payment of 1,000. What was Lin Jia talking about? With trembling hands, she opened her bag, the worn fabric pulling at the seams. Inside were her textbooks, a few dog-eared notebooks, and a small, faded pouch containing her lunch. A simple, almost pathetic collection. Nothing that remotely resembled expensive cosmetics. She emptied the contents of her bag onto the floor, the clatter of books and the rustling of papers echoing in the sudden silence. Her cheeks burned with shame and anger. This was humiliation, pure and simple. Lin Jia's smile widened, triumphant. See. I told you, she began, but her words were cut short by a sudden interruption. A woman's voice, sharp and clear, cut through the air. Jiashi. What's going on here? Lu Jiashi's mother, her face weathered and lined from years of hard work, stood at the end of the hallway, her eyes blazing with protective fury. She clutched a small, insulated bag containing the steamed buns she prepared for her daughter's lunch. The sight of her daughter's belongings scattered on the floor, the accusatory faces of the other students, sent a wave of anger surging through her. Lin Jia faltered, her triumphant smile fading into a mask of confusion. She hadn't anticipated this. This street vendor daring to interrupt her. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice laced with disdain. Jiaxi's mother strode forward, her gaze fixed on Lin Jia. "I'm her mother," she stated, her voice ringing with authority. She knelt down and began gathering Jiaxi's belongings, her movements swift and efficient. "And I'd like to know why you're accusing my daughter of stealing." The confrontation that followed exposed the shallowness of Lin Jia's world, the fragile edifice of her carefully constructed image. The custom-made cosmetics, intended as a subtle display of wealth and power, became a symbol of her own insecurity and cruelty. And Jiaxi, the seemingly poor student, revealed an unexpected strength, a quiet dignity that shone brighter than any designer label. The whispers began anew, this time tinged with uncertainty, with the first cracks of doubt appearing in the facade of Lin Jia's carefully constructed social dominance. The air in Lin Jia's villa hung thick with the cloying sweetness of lilies, a fragrance Jiaxi found suffocating. Crystal chandeliers cast a cold, glittering light on the polished marble floors, reflecting the faces of Lin Jia and her entourage, faces that now held a mixture of amusement and disdain. Jiaxi stood alone, the cheap fabric of her dress a stark contrast to the silks and satins surrounding her. She could feel their gazes, sharp as needles, pricking at her skin. Just another amusement for them, she thought, her stomach clenching. Another opportunity to reaffirm their superiority. Lin Jia's laughter, a tinkling sound that grated on Jiaxi's nerves, echoed through the vast hall. "So, Lu Jiaxi," she began, her voice dripping with false sweetness, "tell us more about your humble beginnings." The words were laced with venom, each syllable designed to wound. Jiaxi remained silent, her jaw tight. She could feel the heat rising in her cheeks, the familiar sting of humiliation. "Don't react," she told herself fiercely. "Don't give them the satisfaction." Chen Feng, ever the sycophant, chimed in, "Yes, do tell us. We're dying to hear all about your interesting life." He sneered, his eyes raking over her clothes with open contempt. Jiaxi's fingers curled into fists. "They think they know me," she thought, a flicker of defiance igniting within her. "They think they've seen through me." But the truth was buried deep, a secret she guarded fiercely. She wouldn't offer them a glimpse, not a crumb of her real self. She wouldn't give them the power to truly hurt her. Su Yanqing leaned against a grand piano, observing the scene with a detached amusement. His eyes, dark and inscrutable, flickered over Jiaxi, a hint of something unreadable in their depths. He seemed almost intrigued by her silence, by her refusal to break. His presence, though silent, was a tangible weight in the room, a reminder of the unspoken hierarchies that governed their world. Zhang Yan, standing slightly apart from the group, watched Jiaxi with a mixture of concern and something else. Something Jiaxi couldn't quite decipher. He seemed to be holding himself back, as if on the verge of speaking, but the words remained trapped in his throat. The silence stretched, taut and uncomfortable. Jiaxi could hear the faint ticking of a grandfather clock in the corner, each tick amplifying the tension in the room. Finally, Lin Jia broke the silence, her voice laced with impatience. "Well? Cat got your tongue?" Jiaxi met her gaze, her own eyes unwavering. "There's nothing to tell," she said, her voice quiet but steady. "My life isn't a story for your amusement." Lin Jia's smile faltered for a fraction of a second, a flicker of annoyance crossing her features. "Oh, but it is," she purred, her voice taking on a sharper edge. "It's a cautionary tale. A reminder of what happens to those who try to climb above their station." Her words struck a nerve, a raw, exposed nerve that Jiaxi had been trying to protect. They don't understand, she thought, a wave of bitterness washing over her. They don't know the sacrifices, the struggles. Suddenly, a voice, rough and unfamiliar, cut through the air. Jiaxi. A woman stood in the doorway, her face weathered and lined, her clothes simple and worn. Jiaxi's mother. Her heart lurched. No, she thought, panic rising within her. Not here. Not now. The room fell silent, all eyes turning to the newcomer. Lin Jia's eyebrows arched in amusement, her lips curling into a condescending smile. And who might this be? She asked, her voice dripping with disdain. Jiaxi's mother stepped into the room, her eyes scanning the faces of the wealthy students, her gaze lingering on Jiaxi's pale face. I'm Jiaxi's mother, she said, her voice firm despite the tremor in her hands. What's going on here? Lin Jia laughed, a high, brittle sound. Nothing, auntie, she said, her tone dripping with mockery. We were just having a little chat with your daughter. Jiaxi could feel her mother's gaze on her, a mixture of concern and confusion in her eyes. Jiaxi? Her mother asked again, her voice laced with worry. Jiaxi wanted to disappear, to melt into the shadows. Shame, hot and suffocating, washed over her. Lin Jia, sensing her discomfort, pressed her advantage. We were just reminding your daughter, she said, her voice laced with malice, that some people are born to serve, not to socialize with their betters. Jiaxi's mother stiffened, her eyes narrowing. What are you talking about? She demanded, her voice rising. Lin Jia turned to Jiaxi, a cruel smile playing on her lips. Tell her, Jiaxi, she said. Tell her how your family sold everything for your schooling. Tell her how you plan to snag a rich heir to pay it all back. The words hung in the air, heavy with malice and unspoken accusations. Jiaxi closed her eyes, her body trembling with suppressed emotion. It's true, she thought, the realization a bitter pill to swallow. Every single word. Her mother's hand gripped her arm, her fingers digging into her skin. Jiaxi, she said, her voice low and urgent, is this true? Jiaxi opened her eyes, meeting her mother's gaze. She couldn't lie. Not to her. Yes, she whispered, the word barely audible. The silence that followed was deafening. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the manicured lawns of the archery range, the air thick with the scent of freshly cut grass and the faint metallic tang of ozone. Lin Jia adjusted the emerald green sleeve of her custom-made archery outfit, a smug smile playing on her lips. Around her, a chorus of sycophantic laughter echoed, punctuated by the thwack of arrows finding their marks. She glanced towards the far end of the range where Lu Jiaxi stood, a solitary figure in a simple, almost threadbare outfit. Lin Jia's smile sharpened. Let her see what real privilege looks like. She thought, let her see where she truly belongs. Lu Jiaxi squinted against the sun, trying to ignore the whispers and stares that seemed to follow her every move. She knew she was an anomaly in this world of tailored clothes and effortless grace. Her mother's sacrifices, the endless hours spent at the street stall, the weight of expectation it all pressed down on her, heavy and suffocating. The bow in her hand felt alien, a symbol of a life she wasn't supposed to have. Just get through this, she told herself, don't let them see how much it hurts. Su Yanqing watched the scene unfold with an air of detached amusement. He leaned against a polished oak tree, a half-eaten apple in his hand. The social dynamics of Easton Academy were a source of constant, if somewhat predictable, entertainment. He noted the tension radiating from Lin Jia, the carefully constructed facade of innocence barely concealing the simmering resentment beneath. Interesting, he mused, I wonder what our little newcomer has done to earn such animosity. She must know everyone here is rich or powerful. Chen Feng's voice, laced with venom, reached Jiaxi's ears. Dressed so revealing, must be out to seduce men. Trying to catch a wealthy husband, no doubt. A ripple of laughter followed, each giggle a tiny, poisoned dart aimed at Jiaxi's already fragile composure. She gripped the bow tighter, her knuckles whitening. Revealing? She thought bitterly, glancing down at her plain cotton shirt. This is all I have. The casual cruelty of their words, the effortless way they dismissed her, ignited a flicker of defiance within her. I won't let them break me. Zhang Yan, standing near the edge of the group, observed the unfolding drama with a frown. He had noticed Lu Jiaxi's quiet resilience, the way she carried herself with a dignity that belied her apparent poverty. There was something about her that didn't fit the narrative Lin Jia and her cohorts were so eager to weave. He shifted his weight, a subtle but deliberate move that placed him slightly closer to Jiaxi. Lin Jia, sensing the shift in attention, lifted her bow and aimed with practiced ease. The arrow flew, landing squarely in the center of the target. A wave of applause erupted, fueling her already inflated ego. She turned, her eyes locking onto Jiaxi's, a silent challenge in their depths. Jiaxi took a deep breath, her heart pounding against her ribs. She closed her eyes for a moment, picturing her mother's tired face, the hope that shone in her eyes. For her, she thought, I won't back down. When she opened her eyes, the world seemed to sharpen, the noise fading into background hum. She drew the bowstring back, her movements fluid and precise, her focus absolute. The arrow soared through the air, a whisper of defiance against the opulent backdrop, landing inches from Lin Jia's perfect shot. A stunned silence descended upon the range. Even Su Yenqing straightened, a flicker of genuine surprise crossing his face. Lin Jia's carefully constructed composure cracked, a flash of pure hatred contorting her features. How dare she? She thought, her nails digging into her palms. How dare this nobody upstage me? Chen Feng, ever eager to please, rushed to Lin Jia's side. Don't worry, Lin Jia, he hissed, his eyes darting towards Jiaxi. I'll take care of this. He moved towards the target, a malicious glint in his eyes. As Jiaxi prepared for her next shot, he subtly shifted the target, a barely perceptible movement designed to sabotage her aim. Zhang Yan saw the maneuver, his jaw tightening. He stepped forward, his voice calm but firm. Perhaps we should check the targets for accuracy, he suggested, his eyes meeting Chen Feng's with a silent warning. Before Chen Feng could respond, a sleek black car swept onto the grounds, its tires crunching on the gravel. A woman emerged, her presence commanding attention. She wore a simple, elegant dress that spoke of quiet power, her face etched with a fierce protectiveness. It was Lu Jiaxi's mother. Jiaxi's heart leaped at the sight of her. She knew instantly that something had changed, that the carefully constructed facade she had maintained was about to crumble. Lin Jia, her face a mask of confusion, turned to Huang Tian, who had just arrived. Who is that? She whispered, a flicker of unease in her voice. Huang Tian's eyes widened, a mixture of surprise and respect dawning on his face. That, he said, his voice barely above a whisper, is Madame Lu, the CEO of Lu Enterprises. One of the largest real estate developers in the country. The air crackled with tension. The whispers, the stares, the carefully constructed hierarchy of Easton Academy, it all seemed to crumble in the face of this unexpected revelation. Lin Jia's face paled, her carefully crafted smile dissolving into a mask of shock. The realization of the depth of her misjudgment, the sheer audacity of her assumptions, hit her with the force of a physical blow. She had underestimated Lu Jiaxi, mistaking her quiet dignity for weakness, her simple clothes for poverty. She had built her entire strategy on a foundation of lies, and now, the truth was laid bare for all to see. The game had changed, and Lin Jia, for the first time in her life, found herself utterly unprepared. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the manicured lawns of the archery range, the air thick with the scent of freshly cut grass and the metallic tang of ozone. Lin Jia adjusted the grip on her bow, her smile as polished and flawless as the lacquered wood. Inwardly, a thrill of anticipation coursed through her. Today, Lu Jiaxi would be put in her place. The whispers and snickers of her classmates, clustered like a flock of brightly plumed birds, fueled her confidence. They all knew the script. Lu Jiaxi, the scholarship student, the charity case, daring to breathe the same rarefied air as them. Unacceptable. Lu Jiaxi stood apart, a solitary figure against the backdrop of privilege. The borrowed archery equipment felt clumsy in her hands, the whispers like a swarm of stinging insects. She knew their game. They wanted to see her fail, to witness her humiliation. A bitter taste rose in her throat, a mixture of anger and resignation. She closed her eyes for a moment, her mother's face flashing before her mind, her weathered hands calloused from years of hard work. This charade, this pretense of poverty, it was all for her. For a chance at a future her mother could only dream of. The competition began, each twang of the bowstring a taut note in the symphony of orchestrated cruelty. Lin Jia's arrows found their mark with practiced ease, each shot punctuated by polite applause. When Jiaxi's turn came, the silence was heavy, expectant. Her first arrow went wide, eliciting barely suppressed giggles. The second, closer, but still off the mark. Chen Feng, Lin Jia's loyal lieutenant, leaned in, his voice dripping with false sympathy. Perhaps some things are just beyond your reach, Lu Jiaxi. His words were a barbed hook, designed to snag and draw blood. Jiaxi's jaw tightened. She drew a deep breath, her gaze fixed on the target, the whispers fading into a dull hum. This wasn't about archery. It was about something more profound, a battle fought not with arrows but with wills. Her third arrow flew true, striking the outer ring of the target. Not perfect, but a defiant retort to their silent mockery. Suddenly, a ripple of excitement ran through the crowd. Su Yancheng, heir to the Su Empire, had arrived. He strolled onto the field, his presence radiating an aura of effortless power. Lin Jia's smile widened, her eyes sparkling with calculated charm. This was her moment, a chance to solidify her position in his eyes, to further distance herself from the likes of Lu Jiaxi. Is someone like Lu Jiaxi worthy of your status, Yancheng? Chen Feng asked, his voice laced with a sycophantic sweetness. Even someone like Chen Qi gives Su some respect. He gestured dismissively towards Jiaxi. The implication was clear, associating with someone of her background was beneath him. Su Yancheng's gaze shifted towards Jiaxi, a flicker of amusement in his eyes. Lu Jiaxi is really a special judge, he remarked, his tone enigmatic. Lin Jia frowned, a knot of unease tightening in her stomach. There was something in his words, a hidden meaning she couldn't quite grasp. Before anyone could respond, a sleek black car pulled up, its tires crunching on the gravel. A woman emerged, her simple clothes a stark contrast to the designer outfits surrounding her. It was Jiaxi's mother, her face etched with worry. She rushed towards Jiaxi, her eyes scanning the crowd, a lioness protecting her cub. The whispers intensified, laced with a new layer of disdain. The street vendor, the working-class mother, a blatant reminder of Jiaxi's lowly origins. Lin Jia's eyes gleamed with triumph. This was it. The final nail in Jiaxi's coffin. She turned to Huang Tian, a wealthy young man whose attention she had been carefully cultivating, her voice laced with feigned concern. It's so sad, isn't it? People pretending to be something they're not. Her words hung in the air, heavy with judgment. Suddenly, Jiaxi's mother straightened, her eyes locking onto Lin Jia. A strange calm settled over her features. Pretending, she echoed, her voice surprisingly steady. Perhaps you should ask your own mother about pretending, Lin Jia. About pretending to be the sole heiress of the Lin fortune when in reality, she paused, letting the silence hang heavy in the air. She was merely the mistress. The air crackled with shock. The whispers ceased. Lin Jia's carefully constructed facade crumbled, her face paling. The truth, so carefully hidden, had been laid bare. Her classmates stared, their eyes wide with disbelief. Jiaxi met Lin Jia's gaze, a flicker of something cold and hard in her eyes. "My mother may be a street vendor," she said, her voice ringing with newfound authority. "But at least she earned her living honestly. Unlike some people who rely on stolen fortunes and fabricated identities." She turned towards the approaching Su Yancheng, her expression softening slightly. "My apologies for the charade, Yancheng," she said, a hint of steel in her voice. "I'm afraid Lu Jiaxi was merely a temporary disguise." She extended her hand towards him. "Allow me to introduce myself. I am Lu Jia, CEO of Jiaqing Real Estate, and, incidentally, the owner of this archery range." Su Yancheng's lips curved into a knowing smile. He took her hand, his grip firm. The power dynamics had shifted, irreversibly. Lin Jia watched, her world tilting on its axis, the whispers now directed at her, a chorus of disbelief and scorn. The humiliation was complete, a perfect reflection of the cruelty she had inflicted on others. The hunter had become the hunted. The crisp autumn air, scented with fallen leaves and the faint metallic tang of approaching winter, did little to soothe the burning humiliation that prickled Lin Jia's skin. The whispers, once deferential, now carried a venomous undercurrent. Each politely averted gaze felt like a brand, searing the mark of her downfall onto her soul. How could this happen? Just hours ago, she was the undisputed queen of Easton Academy, her reign secured by the impenetrable fortress of her family's wealth. Now, the fortress had crumbled, revealing the flimsy scaffolding of her carefully constructed persona. Lu Jiaxi. The name echoed in her mind, a mocking reminder of her catastrophic miscalculation. That girl, with her threadbare clothes and downcast eyes, had played her perfectly. A meticulously crafted performance of poverty, designed to lure in the likes of Huang Tian, to snatch away the prize that rightfully belonged to Lin Jiao. Her perfectly manicured nails dug into her palms. "I'll make you live in shadow forever," she muttered under her breath, the words tasting like ash. The image of Jiaxi, radiant and self-assured, standing beside her mother a street vendor, no less seared itself into her memory. The contrast was unbearable. The raw, genuine emotion radiating from Jiaxi's mother as she embraced her daughter, the pride in her eyes, it was a stark reminder of the emptiness that gnawed at Lin Jia's own gilded cage. Her parents, perpetually absorbed in their business empire, saw her as an extension of their brand, a polished trophy to be displayed. Love, genuine, unadulterated love, was a luxury she'd never known. Chen Feng, his face a mask of awkward sympathy, hovered nearby. He opened his mouth to speak, but Lin Jia cut him off with a venomous glare. "Don't," she hissed. The pity in his eyes was worse than the whispers. She needed a plan, a way to reclaim her stolen throne. Huang Tian, his attention now firmly captivated by Jiaxi's sudden elevation, was the key. He always gravitated towards power, towards prestige. She had to remind him of her own inherent worth, of the connections and influence her family still wielded. Later, in the opulent, echoing emptiness of her family's villa, Lin Jia paced the marble floors, the click of her heels a frantic rhythm against the silence. The opulent furnishings, once a source of pride, now seemed to mock her diminished status. "Give me back my heiress identity," she whispered to the empty room, her voice cracking. The carefully curated image she had presented to the world, the illusion of effortless superiority, had shattered. She felt exposed, vulnerable, adrift in a sea of uncertainty. The thought of facing her classmates, of enduring their thinly veiled contempt, was unbearable. Across the city, in a modest apartment, Lu Jiaxi sat with her mother, the lingering excitement of the archery event slowly giving way to a quiet contentment. Her mother's calloused hand rested on hers, a comforting weight. "You did well, my little sparrow," she murmured, her eyes shining with pride. Jiaxi leaned into her touch, a wave of warmth washing over her. The charade was over. The constant fear of exposure, the careful navigation of the treacherous social landscape of Easton Academy, could finally be laid to rest. "They called me a gold digger," Jiaxi said softly, the words laced with a hint of bitterness. Her mother's grip tightened. "Let them talk," she said, her voice firm. "They know nothing of the sacrifices we've made, of the years we've endured. Your father, he may have wealth, but he will never have this." She gestured between them, encompassing the bond they shared, the quiet strength they had forged together. Su Yanqing's unexpected appearance at the archery event, the subtle but unwavering support he had offered, played on Jiaxi's mind. He saw through the facade, recognized the steel beneath the carefully constructed mask of poverty. His amused detachment seemed to conceal a deeper understanding, an intuitive grasp of the complex dynamics that governed their world. News of Jiaxi's true identity spread through Easton Academy like wildfire. The whispers changed, morphing from malicious gossip to awed speculation. Lin Jia's desperate attempts to reclaim her lost influence fell flat. Her accusations of social climbing, of manipulative scheming, now rang hollow. The revelation of Jiaxi's connection to one of the most powerful real estate tycoons in the country had shifted the balance of power irrevocably. The final blow came during a meticulously orchestrated encounter in the school cafeteria. Lin Jia, her face pale with desperation, cornered Jiaxi. "You're just a gold digger," she spat, the words laced with venom. Jiaxi met her gaze, her eyes calm and unwavering. "I'm the wife of the richest man." Lin Jia shrieked, her voice cracking under the strain. The cafeteria fell silent. All eyes were on them, witnessing the final act of Lin Jia's downfall. Jiaxi's lips curved into a faint smile. "And I," she said, her voice soft but carrying through the hushed room, "am his daughter." The silence deepened, broken only by the sharp intake of breath from the assembled students. Lin Jia stared at her, her face a mask of disbelief, the fight finally draining from her eyes. The crown had been passed, not through scheming or manipulation, but through the simple, undeniable truth. Lin Jia's reign was over. Jiaxi's had just begun. Zhang Yan, from across the room, watched the scene unfold, a subtle flicker of satisfaction in his usually impassive eyes. He had known Jiaxi's true identity from the start. He had seen her quiet strength, her unwavering dignity. And he had chosen his side.